Well, it's another week. It's another episode. Welcome back to History According to Hollywood with Dustin and Kyle.
Man, I'm so glad I found my computer. It took me 5 years of searching to locate it.
5 years of searching.
That's really a good joke if you've seen this movie.
All right, Mr. Kyle.
Yo.
Search for the words to describe the movie we're watching this week.
Technicolor is the first word that comes to mind.
Technicolor.
Technicolor is a good word for it.
John Wayne would be the other word.
Immense. I'd call it immense. I think that's a good. Yeah. Immense and understated would be the Technicolor, immense, John Wayne, understated.
Yeah.
Those would be the four words I'd use to describe the searchers.
Racist.
Yeah. But not as blatantly as I thought. But yes, like very, very, but again, understated. Again, the racism in the movie is understated.
I thought we'd gotten our movie about racism out of the way, but apparently not.
Nah, man. It's a movie from the 50s. It's just going to be in it. It's just going to happen.
I guess so. Kyle, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about the 1956 John Wayne, John Ford movie, one of the most prolific, if not successful, director-actor duos in history. Their 1956 movie, The Searchers.
The Searchers!
Which is also widely regarded as one of John Wayne's best films and his best Western film, which, having been forced to watch several John Wayne films by my family, I'll back that. Of the ones I've seen, it's that and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I think it's a toss-up between the two of them.
I think Liberty Valance is much better than this movie.
I think it's a better movie. I don't know if it's a better Western. Like that's the caveat. I think The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance might be just his best movie.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's a Jimmy Stewart movie with John Wayne in it. But
you and I are gonna maybe not disagree a whole lot, but I feel like we have different opinions on this movie. So maybe we disagree a little bit.
Yeah, who knows?
So 1956, directed by John Ford, who also directed The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and also The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh.
He'd been directing films since 1932 at this point. So he's been directing films. This is 56. He's gone through just past the silent era, now into the Technicolor, kind of considered the boom in the 50s. This is America's cinema when it's becoming a huge part of pop culture. Fun fact, he was stunned by a scorpion on set of this film.
Fun fact number 2, Joseph Stalin, the dictator of the Soviet Union, was a huge fan of John Ford and John Wayne films.
Well, there you go.
Like, that's a fun, just random tidbit that's not at all related to this movie because Stalin was dead by the time it came out.
I want to see, I wish they would have used that as a way to promote some of his films, like Stalin approved.
Yeah, the problem is John Wayne was vehemently anti-communist, so I don't know if he'd have been okay with that.
No, probably not. All right.
But,
so another piece to this collaboration here, Frank S. Nugent, also a longtime collaborator with John Ford. He's the screenwriter for this. Also, this is based on a novel by Alan Lee May, best known for this, which is The Searchers, and also known for The Unforgiven. Not the Clint Eastwood film from the 90s, but the 1960s film starring Audrey Hepburn and Burt Lancaster. So, kind of interesting. That might be one we want to check out in the future. It seems like a pretty good movie.
Yeah, maybe.
So obviously we have John Wayne. John Wayne at this point in time, probably the most iconic actor in America.
John Wayne is John Wayne at the time, of this film.
Right. This is not like an early John Wayne before he's John Wayne at this point.
This is the man. This is Kurt Russell in Tombstone. Like, this is the man, the myth, the legend, John Wayne in his biome.
I think the only one who may be able to rival his popularity at this time would be Elvis.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say Elvis was probably far more popular than John Wayne. But maybe not by 1956, though.
But maybe not in Hollywood, in movies.
And, maybe not by 1956. Oh, man. Who's more popular in 1956, John Wayne or Elvis?
I don't know. I think it would depend on the population. If you ask the younger generation, more than likely Elvis, and if you ask the older generation, more than likely John Wayne.
Interesting.
debated by two guys born in the late 90s.
And where both of the men they're speaking about are pretty irrelevant to their lives.
We've not gotten that John Wayne biopic, though. Interesting enough. Just something I just thought of.
I feel like the problem is who, and why. Like, why? I feel like John Wayne's life isn't that interesting. I feel like John Wayne's movie career is interesting. And I think that's
man.
probably what
For him to be
holds
as
it back.
prominent as he was for so long, he's got to have an interesting life story.
Yeah. He's also not a super, in 21st century view, he's not a super likable person. He's not a bad person, but he's very, like, go white society, Native American shouldn't speak at the Golden Globes, like that kind of guy.
Yeah, we're going to kind of get into that. I guess that's kind of, he's a man of his time, and yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more. But let's round out the rest of this cast here. You also have Vera Miles. She played Lila Crane in Psycho, which I thought was interesting. I knew as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, I know her. And then Ward Bond, another long-term collaborator with John Ford. He's also a close friend of John Wayne. John Wayne gave the eulogy at Ward's funeral in 1960.
Oh.
Who was our other guy? Martin.
1 second. Jeffrey Hunter.
Jeffrey Hunter's the one who plays Martin?
Yes.
So he actually passed away at a young age. I forget the year, but he was doing a stunt for a film, and the glass on a window on the inside of a car was supposed to blow outward, and it blew inward and gave him like some sort of like hemorrhage or something. Like it affected his brain, and then about a year later, he I guess as a complication had some sort of aneurysm or subdural hemorrhage or something, and he was walking down on the third flight of stairs and basically fainted and hit his head and never recovered. So gone too soon, man. He had a great, I think he steals the show in this. In my opinion, I think he's the best actor in this movie.
Well, didn't he win the award that the movie won? Like, wasn't it his, the best new actor or something?
The Golden Globe was actually for Patrick Wayne.
Oh.
Which is John Wayne's son, who he plays the little Yankee lieutenant who pulls up and towards the end. And I thought it was funny that he's in the movie for like 10 minutes and he wins like most promising young actor.
Nepotism be alive and well, man.
No kidding. 50s were a different time.
Because I hate to break it to you, he didn't do that great.
He didn't do anything.
Even in the role of a goofy guy who's not supposed to do anything, he didn't do that great.
There's nothing remarkable about his performance. Sorry,
guys. Golden Globes got it wrong. You heard it here first.
All right, man. Here we go. Let's get into this movie. I'm going to try not to just read you the entire plot because I kept waiting for things to happen and that I could write stuff like questions down for, and I just ended up writing down the entire plot of the movie instead. So we're going to hopefully not just read a novelization of this movie.
Well, there is a novelization of this movie.
There is a novelization, yes, but we're not going to do that. This is not an audiobook. This is a podcast. Okay.
Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 1. Harry woke up under the stairs.
Texas, 1868.
A very good year.
So we're 3 years removed from the Civil War?
Yeah.
Across the sandy plains rides a returning Ethan Edwards. This is our John Wayne.
As inspirational Western music plays.
Right. His family welcomes him back home after years away. Ethan is happy to see all his brother and sister, nieces and nephews. That is until Martin Pauly arrives and Ethan finds himself at unease. We're informed that the war ended 3 years ago, yet he's just now returning home, causing dismay amongst the younger children. Yet the adults seem to understand why. We don't.
We're not sure. It's implied that it's for crime. I think the implication is that he's a Confederate raider. Because he has federal gold that is brand new mint when he gets back.
Yes, he has the Yankee dollar. What is this Yankee dollar?
So it's just a dollar. Like, it's just a gold dollar coin. The reason it's called a Yankee dollar in the movie is because when the Confederate States, Texas included, seceded from the Union, they had to print their own currency, right? Because they are a quote-unquote independent nation that lasts a whopping 4 years. And the Confederate dollar, even when the Confederacy is a thing, is not worth a tinker's damn. And when the Confederacy gives up and is defeated, it's not worth anything. It's pieces of paper that have no monetary value because they're not linked to the federal treasury because it was a rogue state that printed its own money. So Yankee dollar implies that it is a dollar that is worth a dollar by the federal monetary value of a dollar.
What happened to the Confederate money post Civil War? Was it still used?
I mean, you could use it off and on. It's mostly just fire bait, dude. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not worth much during the Civil War. By the end of the war, the Confederate economy is in shambles. Think like Germany in the 1920s. Like, that's how bad their economy is. So the problem is that all of these Civil War veterans from the Confederacy are paid in Confederate dollars. All of these rich landowners are paid and sell in Confederate dollars. They got rid of their federal money. Most of them didn't have any left. They might have gold, but if you didn't have gold, the paper money, worthless.
Gotcha. Okay.
And gold stamped with the Confederate seal is still gold, but it's not going to be worth the same as the Yankee dollar because it's like, it's kind of just specie metal kind of out there floating.
Gotcha.
So Yankee dollar is like, this is a dollar that is worth a dollar that you can take anywhere in the United States and it's worth a dollar. So actually, that's a really good historical tidbit they put in there. That would be a very important specification for somebody only a couple years removed from the Civil War in a former Confederate state to make when paying people with coins.
So Sam Clayton, the Reverend's going to arrive at the estate, and he says that basically their neighbor had cattle stolen in the night. Aaron and Martin are sworn in as volunteer Texas Rangers. He just kind of walks in and says, "Raise your hand, and you're doing this." Is this kind of how Texas was working at the time?
Yeah, I mean, so remember when I told you during Django that that bounty hunting was not as prolific as it's acted like it was, and that generally it was federal marshals recruiting people to help them retrieve a bounty. So the Texas Rangers are a professional unit, law enforcement, paramilitary unit in Texas. By the end of the Civil War, they're kind of in a state of flux, but they exist, and the idea is that because later in the movie it's revealed that 14 of those guys are paid, that they are professional soldiers. So the Reverend is a captain in the Texas Rangers, but he is only a captain when he's needed to be a Texas Ranger. So he has the duty to appoint civilian deputies, civilian privates, whatever you want to call them, into his Ranger band that is going to have like a small group of professional Texas Rangers, quote unquote. And then when needed, will recruit skilled people that he knows that don't want to be part of the Texas Rangers, but are willing to help when needed.
And he literally says, like, no pay. Like, at the end, he's like, "Oh, it doesn't pay, by the way."
Yeah, well, he's just straight up about it. He's like, "Look, I'm recruiting you." It's like if a cop deputizes you, you can't really say no. I mean, I guess you could, but nobody's going to. Like, if the situation's bad enough that a Greene County sheriff knocks on my door and says, "You got a gun?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Cool, stand at your door. You're a deputy." Anybody comes down the street, shoot him. What am I going to do? Say no?
Actually, I'm not home.
Yeah, sorry. This is a hologram. Please leave a message after the beep. Shuts door.
Yeah, so Ethan says, "I don't believe in surrenders. I still have my saber." Meaning he still is trying to fight for the Confederacy that's already surrendered?
Well, no, again, so these are things that still would have been relatively well known to society in the 50s because it would be like World War I now. Most of the Civil War veterans have just recently passed away. There might even be, because it's, 90 years later, there might be a 105, 106-year-old guy puttering around somewhere who remembers it. Yeah. But most of the people above the age of 40 at this time probably have either met a Civil War veteran or met somebody who was the direct descendant of a Civil War veteran. So they're going to know a lot more about it, just off the top of their heads. And so when you surrender, you hand in your saber, especially if you're a cavalryman. That's a very important, it's symbolic. I'm literally hanging up my sword. I'm giving up the fight. He has his saber, which means, again, heavy implication that he's a Confederate raider after the war, that he is a rogue criminal, and it takes him 3 years to give up.
Okay. So he brings up that it could be Comanche. Now, okay, so I say Comanche, and they say Comanche throughout the movie.
It's just slang. It's the same. It's the same tribe.
It's the same tribe.
Yeah. Okay. Comanche comes out of your mouth a lot faster than Comanche is part of it. So.
Okay. I'm going to say Comanche just because that's what I usually say.
Well, yeah, that's their actual name. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was watching this, I was like, I think some of the names that our casters calling the Comanche people are, slurs and not appropriate, not PC terms to be called. So I asked Kyle because he watched it shortly after I did, and I was like, "Hey man, can you double check that as you're watching it? Because you probably catch on a lot more than I would."
Yeah, I didn't catch. Like I said, it's understated is the word I would use, because again, it's not like they're out there calling them like Redskins or anything super obviously derogatory, but it's the tone and it's the way they use the words that are like, okay, these aren't compliments. They may not be insults directly written for Native Americans, but these aren't nice words that we're using. Like, we don't mean these as a compliment to people.
Yeah, speaking of which, Ethan is going to continue to show his dismay for Martin, his nephew, and seemingly only because he's 1/8 Native. He looks now, and he does say, "You look like you could be a half breed."
He doesn't, for the record.
Yeah, he just looks tan. But you'll realize later on that doesn't matter. So, anyways, or that's all it takes for someone to think that you're Native, is just to be tan. His hatred towards the Comanche people is very apparent, and he does not try to hide it in any way. He is very upfront with it. He's belligerent with it,
and it only gets worse. It only gets worse as the events of the movie go on.
So he tells the Reverend, he says, "I figure a man is only good for one oath at a time," which is I like that line. It's a good line, and he's talking about because he's a Texas Ranger and a Reverend at the same time. He says, "I took mine to the Confederate States of America." Don't like that as much.
No, I don't
like that as much.
But I do like the implication of it that I'll follow you, but I'm not swearing to your damn oath.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not a ranger. I'm just a guy who's going to ride with you because I have an interest in what's going on.
I do. There was, and maybe you can help me out with this. There was, let me assume that probably at least 75% of these westerns from the 50s all the way up through the 70s, our protagonist is going to be a sympathizer with the South.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's that lost cause narrative that we still have. It's really, really popular in the middle of the 20th century. It's actually part of what drives the vehement opposition to the civil rights movement in the South. But it's just this idea that objectively, the Confederate States did not want to be the United States. They are, by the letter of the law, all traitors, all treasonous, and all rebels. And as we all know, when rebels lose, they are the bad guys. Since they happen to want a slave empire, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Confederate States were the bad guys of the Civil War. The thing about the 20th century, though, is that the North wins the war, but the period after it, where you're reconciling with what happened, the Reconstruction, the South wins that. They never get fully brought back into the social fold of the northern states, and they never lose the idea that it was the righteous cause, the right of people to defend their states' rights against federal overreach. And the narrative of defending slavery is really, really whitewashed in the South, especially the whole country, but the South a lot, because even if you're racist, it's really, really hard to launch a PR campaign over "we fought to have slaves," and that was why. It's a lot easier to be like, well, we were oppressed by a government 3,000 miles away, and we tried to do something about it, and we lost, but we stood proud. And so that's a lot of the reason why the Confederate veterans are so sympathetic in movies and media at that time period, because it's that counterculture of, well, they weren't all awful people. They weren't all racist. They weren't all slave owners. They were just good men defending what they thought was a good cause. And historical record says otherwise, but that's still a really popular opinion today. So
yeah, and I thought what I love to hear for the argument is, well, it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. And I go,
states' rights to do what?
Yeah, what state right were they defending?
A state's right to have what?
Exactly. Anyways, moving on. Let's spell that out.
Whatever. That's a different movie for a different time.
We try not to get political, but sometimes when we have to draw the line of like, okay,
the lines have to be drawn. Slavery bad.
Slavery
Army
bad.
that defends slavery bad.
We need to get that on a shirt. Slavery
bad.
Endorsed by History According to Hollywood.
Treason on behalf of slavery, also bad.
All right, man. Let's move on. Anyway. Okay, so they're gonna find a dead bull with a spear in it. They're not used for food. They're like, what's going on? Well, Ethan's going to spell it out. The reason for driving the cattle away from the farm and slaughtering the cattle was to pull the men away and leave the women and children defenseless. He calls it a murder raid. Any truth in these tactics? Comanches killing people in Texas for the sake of murder?
Yeah, so in the movie, it's portrayed like these Comanches have just gone rogue and have decided to go on the murder path. in real life, these things happen. They very much do this. This is a tactic, especially by the Plains Native Americans like the Comanche, and especially in the Southwest where they hold out longer than the other tribes because of geography more than anything else, because desert is incredibly hard to wage any sort of war in. But what it would be is that if something had been done against the tribe or against the band that they viewed as just, murder, no reason for it, why the cavalry comes in and kills 50 women and children, they would respond in kind if they had the numbers and the warriors to do so. So in actual history, if that had happened, it would have been almost every single time a reprisal against something that white settlers or American cavalry did. And they would usually be reprising a raid. And so it's that constant circle of it started by encroachment onto Comanche territory, and then it just becomes this whodunit circle of, well, they killed us, we killed them. They killed us, we killed them. In fact, in 1840, the Comanche launched the largest Native American raid in American history, where they send 400 braves on a warpath through Texas. And they burn like 3 or 4 towns to the ground. They kill like 150 people.
Really?
Because of a massacre that happens against them and one of their chiefs at what is supposed to be a prisoner negotiation exchange in a Texas courthouse where 35 Comanche men, women, and children are gunned down by 100 Texas state militia. So that's what I mean about these raids don't just happen out of nowhere. They're not these sociopaths who only believe in terror tactics. They're human beings who, when they are wronged, they will right that wrong however they see fit.
Okay.
Same can be said for white settlers. It's more common that white settlers just attack Native Americans, but it's not popular. Like, usually it's a perceived wrong that has happened, and it's just a cycle of violence.
Okay. We're going to have a great scene here. Maybe, I don't know. Let's just get to it.
Yeah.
As the sun sets on the farm, dusk brings with it an impending attack. Howls and lights are seen in the distance as night falls. Lucy screams as a realization that death is coming for them all.
And her mom literally knocks some sense into her.
The parents sneak their daughters out the window to hide, and the dog, named Chris, follows. Immediately, little Debbie is going to be found by a Comanche tribe member. This is actually our Comanche commander. His name's Star. Or I guess maybe not commander, maybe he's called chief. But anyways, he is played by German-born Henry Brandon, who is just literally tan.
Yeah.
But is very much and obviously a white man.
Oh, yeah. It ain't great.
He blows his horn as we crossfade into the next morning. I'm going to pause real quick because we have a couple things that I want to unpack here.
Okay.
Besides Star, all of the Comanche tribe members are actually of Navajo descent.
Yeah,
so
that's why he stands out so much. You're like, wait a second.
At least they got 99% of the natives as actually native people. But why would you not also do that with your tribe leader?
Yeah.
Because the line delivery that he has and the scenes that he's in, it's not like he needed to give this great, performance that they're like, oh, well, we really want to go with this established actor. It's literally just that role's too big for a native. Let's give it to a white person.
Pretty much.
Thanks, 1950s America. Love it. Okay.
Love that.
That was sarcasm, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. The dress and the songs featured in the film are also of Navajo culture. I don't know exactly what word you would use for that.
Culture's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So the culture. Paying attention to the tombstone that Debbie is hiding in front of spells out Mary Jane Edwards, Ethan's wife, was killed by Comanches in 1852. Kind of helping to explain his absolute hatred for this entire group of people. Let's unpack one more thing here. Lena Wood plays young Debbie, who is crouched in front of the tombstone and is spotted by Star. But later on, when she's a little older, she's going to be played by an actress named Natalie Wood, which is her sister. This is the same actress that plays Judy in Rebel Without a Cause and Maria in West Side Story. Pretty promising actress for the time. She suspiciously died / drowned / may have been killed in 1981 during a boat ride with her then husband and several colleagues, one of which was Christopher Walken, as they were filming a movie called Brainstorm.
Can you imagine his commentary on that? Natalie Wood may have drowned. I don't know.
Yeah. So they're out in the ocean, and her husband says he went to bed without her. Apparently somebody heard screaming, heard somebody talking in an aggravated tone, and then the screaming stopped. And then
never a good sign.
Yeah. So she's found the next day a mile away from the boat with a small like dinghy beached nearby. The autopsy report revealed that she had bruises on her body and arms, as well as abrasions on her left cheek, but no indication as to how or when the injuries occurred. And I want to say as late as like 2018, it is still an open investigation.
Oh, somebody killed her. I mean, like, come on.
It kind of looks that way. Man, it's just tragic.
It is. It really is.
Moving on back to our movie here. So back to where we are in the film. Ethan arrives to find his entire family dead and their house set ablaze. He keeps Martin from seeing what they did to his aunt and uncle. But it's okay, everybody. Chris the dog is still alive.
The dog makes it, guys.
The dog survives. It's okay. Before the funeral is even done, Ethan assembles a small team to track down those responsible. How did they know the girls were alive? Is it this doll that he finds away from it? But like, I just don't understand how they figured that out.
I think really it's just they don't find the bodies of the girls, right? And so the assumption is that they're alive and they're taken prisoner.
Okay. Shortly along their way, they're going to find a dead Comanche that's like buried kind of under a rock. And he was a part of the raid. So his brother shoots him during the raid, but he survives to an extent or long enough to get away, and then they bury him farther along. Ethan shoots out this dead Comanche's eyes because, according to Comanche beliefs, now he's going to wander the afterlife blind. Mm-hmm. He says he's going to wander between the winds. That's cold, man.
It is. It's the line that John Wayne's character walks between hard man and cruel man is really, acting wise, is impressive. Because all of the men, what I appreciate is, even though the other men are goofier than Ethan is, they are capable. Like, it's not this Ethan is the only survivalist, he's the only rancher, the classic John Wayne trope. Like, he is just the cold-hearted one amongst these well-meaning guys. Like, they all know what they're doing. They're all good riders. They're all good shots. They've all survived in the Texas frontier. It's just that Ethan is a cold man, and he's maybe even a cruel one.
Also, in this era, the sets and Hollywood, the backdrops, the paintings, looking at it now, maybe at the time you couldn't tell, but looking at it now, you can see that there's not a lot of depth to it. There's maybe 10, 15 yards of sand and a couple trees, and then you have a painting of a background.
You can tell when they're filming outside and when they're filming in the set, and it's pretty. And impressively, probably half of this is actually filmed outside. Like but it's very noticeable. Like, the clouds don't move,
right?
Yeah,
you can tell that they're like painted on and everything. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. The first time that I watched a movie and I really noticed it was actually The Wolfman, which was from like 41. I think. And so I think it's interesting that, like, here we are 15 years later and they look pretty similar. They're just in color now. So, moving on, the Comanche tribe is going to find our party, but the Reverend orders his group to keep moving. They ride side by side as the Comanche group is split into two, surrounding them. And then on his cue, they haul ass to the river, losing the tribe that can't cross the river, I guess. I don't understand what happened here.
I mean, tactically what it is that's not, the Comanche don't fight against entrenched positions. And so it's not that they can't cross the river. It's that if you can get across the river and you can use your repeater rifles and your revolvers to hold them off, you might actually survive. Because you'll notice that, and accurately so, that the Comanches have a couple of rifles, but it's still mostly bows and lances.
Yes.
So if you get ambushed on horseback, you're all dead. You're not going to be able to react fast enough to stop them. But if you can get across a body of water and behind a log or a couple rocks and use your repeater rifles, you might maybe just be able to make it out of that.
Okay. One of our guys is going to get shot, Nesby. He's going to get shot as the firing begins. Martin gets scared for a second and basically gets his rifle taken away from him. And then he's going to switch to a pistol and start firing then. The Reverend definitely misfires and plays it off like it didn't happen. He's raising his pistol up and fires and then raises it higher and lowers the sights and then fires again. Definitely was not prepared for that.
It was so funny. And I think the fact that that was definitely the actor who misfired the blank chamber, and the fact that they kept that shot in the movie is freaking hilarious.
Film's expensive, man. You got John Wayne right next.
I get it. I do. And this is one of the ones that seems to be filmed outside. And so I think it's also that whatever we get, we're going with.
We're going with it. The Reverend ends the fight early, and Ethan says he's going to go alone. Martin and Brad refuse to go back, agreeing to listen to Ethan's orders if it means continuing on. So the party's going to split into two. Reverend's going to take Nesby back to hopefully get him healed up, and Ethan, Martin, and Brad are going to continue on. They follow the Comanche trail until it splits. Ethan goes alone to investigate and comes back visibly distraught. But par for course, he's not going to share the details until later.
It's also worth noting that Brad is the love interest of the older daughter.
Yeah, Lucy.
Of the family, Lucy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it turns out that Lucy was killed, and Ethan had to bury her himself. Brad's going to rush off after hearing that and instantly just get killed.
Yeah, suicide by Comanche.
Yeah. So Ethan and Martin are going to continue alone, trekking long enough for the hot desert to turn to a snow-covered wilderness. Why did this keep happening? Why did we keep going from desert to snow?
I think it's passage of time. I think it's to show just how long they're tracking these Comanche.
Okay.
And how many miles that they cover, because Texas is a huge place. So there's plenty of places in Texas where it snows like a mofo, but they're not the same places as the desert, obviously.
Gotcha.
So it's the implication that these guys are relentless.
Yeah, and we're going to learn that as they return to the homestead, and they say that a letter sent by them arrived a year ago.
Yeah, about the death of Brad. Yeah.
They followed the party until the blizzard covered the trail. At the homestead, we learned that a letter came for Ethan the prior winter. Now, tell me this, buddy. If you are waiting on your family member to return, and a letter comes from them, and it has been months, are you opening that letter? Are you going to read it? Because he opens it. It's sealed. No one else knows what's in it.
I think it depends on who you are. I think also at the time, we have to remember that these isolated homesteads, they're pretty used to not seeing people for a hot minute.
Yeah.
No mail for a year is probably pushing it a little bit, but I would, because I'm a curious person. And I'm also kind of like, they're dead. If I don't see them within a year, I would assume he's dead. But I also understand the idea of not, because it's sacred, right? Like, people don't get a lot of letters at this time, not out there. And so it's the idea that, like, this is his. I'm not gonna encroach on his business.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was thinking, I was like, what if it said, like, oh, early spring, this is where this is the tribe where the tribe will be that you're looking for. You know, what if they said something like that and you're like, oh my God, I have to go find them and I have to take them to the right spot?
Well,
like,
you're never going to find them. You don't know where they are.
That's
I think
true.
Is the thing. Like, they might be dead in a ditch for all you know. So why would you open the letter? Like,
yeah. We have a line here. Tetsukan is but a human man out on a limb all by himself. What's going on with Texas at this time? Did we forget the Alamo? Has the Alamo happened?
Oh yeah, the Alamo happened like 30 years ago.
Okay. The Alamo's happened. All right.
Yeah, Alamo's happened. The bodies are gone. No, so Texican is just somebody in Texas.
Yeah.
And it started as a way to define Texan Mexicans from Mexican Mexicans, since Texas was a part of Mexico for a very long time. Well, okay, not a long time. Mexico was part of the Spanish Empire for a really long time, and that began as a large part of the Empire of Mexico. So the immigrants that moved to the Tejas and Texas region of Mexico were Texicans. They were Mexicans, but they were immigrants to Mexico. And then the name just sticks and eventually is kind of like worked out of social culture.
Okay. I was just curious. So basically, Texican is early term for Texan.
Yeah, and the Swedes, that family, they're old enough that they might actually be Texicans. Like if they're in their 50s, or like mid to late 50s. They could have moved there right before the Texan Revolution. So
Texas has a lot going on, post Civil War.
Yeah.
The war, you've got a lot of Native American tribes. It's kind of like its own little country in a way.
Yeah, it's also just so much of it is so remote. And even now, like the Texan Panhandle, freaking nobody lives out there. And so it's a lot of that. It's also that it's a large, wild former Confederate state. So it's reeling from the loss of the Civil War. The economy is not very good. Federal presence is there, but it's still that we don't like you, like we rebelled for a reason sort of deal. So yeah, I think it's a tribute to how isolated they are and how difficult life is. Like in the sense that this homestead is burned to the ground and everybody's massacred and it's awful, and then life goes on. Because that's what happens in Texas. Sometimes you just get killed by Comanche or bandits or disease or whatever.
All right, man. We're going to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
We learn of Chief Scar. It's a war chief. This is our antagonist. This is our white guy pretending to be a native.
Chief Scar, always accompanied by ominous Native American music.
No kidding.
Bum, 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 bum.
At camp that night, Ethan sneaks away, allowing the men who Martin could sense were following them close in on the camp. Ethan waits for them to strike, then returns fire. He tells Martin, "Thanks, you did fine," who did not know he was playing bait. A little bit later, Martin buys a blanket from a native tribe, and
turns out he buys the woman wearing the blanket from the Native American tribe.
He's like, "Why is she following us?" And Ethan goes, he says, "I bought myself a blanket." He says, "You didn't buy a blanket, you bought her. You got yourself a wife, Sonny."
The running joke of this movie that I don't know if it was intentional or not is that Ethan is clearly like capable in Comanche. Like he speaks enough Comanche to get by, and he's routinely just not relaying important information to Martin.
Fun fact, the actress who plays this new wife, Beulah Arculeta, was found by John Wayne one day crying. When he asked her why she's crying, she said she was going to miss her son's wedding due to production, and John Wayne stopped the production for a few days, flew her back to, I think, California so she could attend her son's wedding. So, good guy, nice. John Wayne.
Stand-up move.
That's real life. Back to the movie. Martin drop kicks his new wife down a hill, which I cracked up laughing. She's like rolled up into a blanket, and he just like double front kicks her, sends her rolling down this hill completely out of nowhere.
One thing that is really 1950s about this movie is the assumption that life in the Wild West was accompanied by just routine physical abuse and that nobody did anything about it. Like that's a very, it's not untrue, but that's a very 1950s, 1960s Western trope is we just walk around punching the crap out of people and it's fine. Like
you
nobody
cares.
You
might as well.
Yeah.
So after he kicks his wife down a hill, he's going to ask her where Star is. She seemingly, she knows and leaves literally an arrow pointing in the direction they need to go. They're going to come up on a herd of buffalo. And Kyle, explain who the hell these guys in blue are. I'm so confused. They just show up randomly.
Oh, they're the federal cavalry.
The federal cavalry. Are these so what they're referring to are the Yankees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, he's a Confederate, so he's going to refer to them as Yankees, but they're the federal cavalry that are sent to annihilate Native Americans. Honestly, that's what they do.
So the federal cavalry is going to show up. We find out that Martin's new wife has been killed. The federal cavalry tells them that the white people that were held captive are in the chapel, and we see that these captives are traumatized by the events they have endured. Man, this is when we're going to start to see a little bit more of that not so pleasant side of Ethan come out when he says, "Hard to believe they're white. They ain't white, they're Comanche." Because these white captives have lived with Comanche for God knows how long now. And in his mind, they're no longer white.
They're corrupted now.
Yes, it's almost like a virus that they have.
Which is funny because to the audience, it's clear that the movie wants to portray it as their captivity with the Comanche has made them go insane.
Yes.
A more, I don't know, enlightened's probably too like condescending of word. A more open-minded audience, though, might question: are they traumatized by that, or are they traumatized by the fact that they just watched 100 cavalrymen slaughter an unarmed village of people?
Well, did they slaughter him, or because they're marching a bunch of people too?
Yeah, but I mean, they killed a lot of them. I mean, they killed his wife.
Is that okay? I didn't know if that was the other Comanche tribe or if that was the federal cavalry.
No, it would have been, if there's in that scene, the dead Native Americans, the cavalry killed them. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's what I mean. Are you traumatized because you're in captivity, or are you that level traumatized because they ride up, gun everybody down, and then who they don't shoot, then they take?
And it's the wrong party.
Yeah, it does. It's not even a party that was bothering them. It's just a group that was buffalo hunting.
Unfortunate.
Happened to have some white captives from God knows. They could have captured them when they were 6. Like, you don't know.
Right. Our duo reunites with Half-Brain Mose, who we met earlier in New Mexico territory. He knows a man who once saw a man who thought he knew a dog that smelled the trail of our little Debbie.
Pretty much.
And then, boom, here we are. An hour and 22 minutes into the film, our protagonist and antagonist meet. Scar shows the scalps he's taken from the white people as revenge for his dead sons. As you said earlier, how there's most of this conflict is retaliation back and forth.
Yeah, it's a cycle of violence.
A cycle of violence. Debbie is present, and though she does not acknowledge her family being there, our duo camps overnight across the river. And this is where we learn it's been 5 years. This is where they say it's been 5 years they've been searching for her.
They do a good job of subtly aging the characters, too. Like John Wayne, Ethan's hair is gray by the time they find Scar, and it's not at the beginning of the movie. And Martin looks like an adult, not an old teenager. I also think that some of the best acting in the movie is the reveal of Debbie in the teepee by John Wayne and by, oh man, why? Work with me, Zoom. The dude who plays Martin, Jeffrey Hunter. By John Wayne and Jeffrey Hunter. That is amazing acting in that one little 5-second snippet. It's the realization, the almost reaction, and then the covering it back up so you don't get killed.
Yeah. This part, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of subtleties in this film. But when Debbie escapes from the Comanche camp and runs to their camp across the river, she tells him to leave, which infuriates Ethan, and he's just going to draw his gun on her and just shoot her right there. Martin stands between them and draws his pistol as well, and then we have a surprise attack. Ethan's hit, and the two retreat to a nearby canyon. And then we don't see Debbie again until the very end of the movie. What? Okay, so Debbie is this supposed to be like the Comanche have brainwashed her, or is she actually like, is she just better off with this tribe? What is the idea here? Because it's confusing, because you can look at it from different perspectives. You have to think of the time that it was put in, or the time that it was released. Is it racism in the sense of they've brainwashed her, they've brought her? Are we supposed to agree with John Wayne, with Ethan's assumption of she's Comanche now, and so she should be dead to us? Or are we supposed to see Martin's perspective of, no, she's confused, or she's trying to protect us, or what's going on here? I'm not sure which way to take it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that we have to give the movie the credit that it is due, and the direction the credit that it is due, whereas Ethan is clearly the outlier in how he views the Comanche, at least by the characters with any real like meaning in the movie. So I don't think we're ever supposed to think Ethan is right. I think he's supposed to be overly extreme. I think Martin is supposed to be the good guy of this movie. Is what was my take. And Ethan is the necessary evil that he accompanies because he needs him. And there's redeeming qualities in Ethan, but when it comes to the Comanche, he's a barbarian. He just is. He's a sociopath. And so there's that. I think that in the scene, what it is she knows that Scar is going to kill them, and she's trying to tell them to leave. But at the time, if you are captured by especially a Plains tribe of Native Americans, if you're not killed outright, eventually you become part of the tribe. She's been there for 5 years. It's implied that she's one of Scar's 4 wives. And so she's been treated well enough at this point And she's like what, 14 or 15 supposed to be. Natalie Wood is clearly like 20.
Right, she's definitely
the
older.
character is supposed to be like 15. So if you're captured at 9 years old and maybe you're treated kind of poorly for 6 months, but then you spend the next 4.5 years being treated well and as part of the community, and you become the wife of the chief, even if you don't like him, you're not going to want to leave for something you barely remember. And your family's dead. Like, you watch that happen. So I think I don't know whether she's happy. I think she's perfectly content being a Comanche, but I also think that she knows that Scar is going to kill her uncle and her brother. So she's trying to get them to leave, but that doesn't mean she wants to go with them.
And maybe she remembers the trauma of watching her family die and doesn't want to turn her new community and this tribe into an enemy once again.
Yeah, it's also, and she has also, if she's been there 5 years, she's seen some crap. So she's probably seen settlers and the cavalry do some awful stuff to the Comanche. So it's also possible, and I don't know if they thought this deeply into it, but as a historian, there's lots of records of people who are captured who become part of the tribe who generally start to take the side of the tribe they're with because they're like, they didn't start this. We came here, we started killing them, they responded, and now they're the bad guy.
Right.
If the captives who are treated well enough to be part of the group, that is almost always their opinion, is like, what in terms of expansion, they don't always like the group they're with, but they're like, there's not a bad guy here, guys. Like, they're not a villain. You're as guilty as they are, sort of deal.
So Ethan's hurt, but we're gonna return home to the homestead just in time for a wedding. This is Vera Miles' character. What is her name?
I don't know. It's Martin's love interest, but his estranged love interest, because he's written her one letter and he's been gone for 5 years.
Oops.
Whoops.
So now they're wanted for murder. They return home in time for a wedding. Now they're wanted for murder by the Texas Rangers.
The murder of the people who tried to ambush them, for the record.
Yes.
This is like, it's related to the plot of the movie.
Martin and Charlie are going to fight for the love of this fair lady.
Fight's a really strong word.
Martin helps him remove his hat and jacket, then proceeds to bite his leg about 30 seconds later. And at one point they stop, and Charlie goes, wait a minute, Marty, somebody's fiddle. And he holds it up and hands it off to somebody. It's a funny fight.
And then uppercuts. I think the thing is, Charlie is a moron. It's very clear that he's an unintelligent person. And so that's played for humor a lot in the fight, because Marty is constantly outwitting him. To the point that they get separated, and the Reverend says, look, we can have a fight, that's fine, but you're going to do it fair, so know this, know that. And he goes, and also take this. And Martin goes, okay. And he takes it, and then he double kicks Charlie like across the ground.
And he goes, and no kicking.
And the Reverend goes, and no kicking.
All right, so a Yankee lieutenant played by Patrick Wayne, which is John Wayne's son, arrives and asks the Reverend to put together a group of men to go take down Star. Mose arrives in rough shape and tells the group where Star's tribe is, which
even
is
though he looks
7
exactly
fingers.
the same as he's ever looked. That is one thing that's very 50s about this movie, is that all of these tortured and beaten people look exactly the same as you look when you're not tortured and beaten.
But his clothes were kind of torn.
Yeah. Or John Wayne got shot with a poison arrow in the shoulder, and there's a bandage on it. He's hurt. He's hurt bad. I don't know if he's going to make it.
Yeah, he has his arm in a sling for a scene, and then it's like nothing happened.
It's also ironic that this is the same generation of people who fought World War II and saw, like, legs get blown off. So it's an interesting dichotomy that we have at this time in American history, for sure.
Before they make their attack to the Comanche base, Ethan drops a bombshell on Martin when he tells him that one of the scalps on Star's lance was Martin's mother's. Martin, the only one still with faith in Debbie's humanity, sneaks into their camp to rescue her. He successfully finds her just as the cavalry storm the tribe. Ethan finds Star's already dead, but proceeds to scalp him regardless. That's Star's the one who's about to walk in right as Martin is rescuing Debbie.
Yeah, Martin kills him.
Martin kills Star, rescues Debbie. Ethan finds Debbie, who's not with Martin. Seemingly, he's ready to kill her. Martin tries to stop him, but then Ethan changes his mind and rescues her himself. And then that's it. This is my biggest complaint with the movie. And I was reading some of the reviews. And they said especially that final scene, that climactic scene at the end. Where's the suspense here? Okay, we see no actual fighting. We just see John Wayne riding around on a horse, shooting at people off camera. They just rolled through the tribe like nothing was there. There was no Star shot. We don't even see him. That's why I was asking earlier, was that Star? We don't know. Martin shoots him. John Wayne shoots everybody else. This cavalry just rides right through like nothing happened. What type of climax is that, man? There's no suspense. The only suspense to it is Ethan gonna shoot Debbie.
Yeah.
That's it. And
that's it.
And there's no moment of him, wrestling with his own hatred of the Comanche people. There's no her, convincing him, no, I want to come home. It's just he rides up on her, gets off his horse, and picks her up. What the hell is that?
I'm kind of a cynic, but I'm not going to lie. I think the movie, if the end of the movie was that Ethan can't overcome his blind hatred and Martin puts him down and then returns alone with Debbie, that would have been better. There it is. Like the anti-hero can't overcome his own evil enough to become the hero. But yeah, I agree. The ending let me down. I was with it and I'm like, all right. Okay, well crafted, little bit of character suspense. Let's see how they end it. And then we got to the end. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's all.
Wow, that sucks. I'm sorry, that sucks. There's no way around it. You can argue what you want for this movie. The ending sucks.
The ending's bad. I don't like the ending. The fact that the raid on the homestead in the beginning is so well crafted and so suspenseful without actually seeing any action. And the fact that my conclusion is the conclusion of this movie irks me even more. Right. Because it's like, clearly you're capable of giving me a heart-rending tragedy without showing it to me.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Or give us some damn action at the end of this movie.
Yeah, or have a melee fight between, I don't know, Ethan and Scar. Like, come on, it can be done.
Our duo is going to return home, and happy ending because Mose finally gets his rocking chair, which he always
does.
2 hours of not a damn thing happening.
Pretty much.
Our protagonist faced no threat in the climax. There was zero suspense. Seemingly everything turned out okay because our good guys were white and our bad guys weren't. I'm sorry. That's the way I saw it.
I mean, it does feel that way. That's for sure. We returned the woman to white society.
Look at it this way. Mike Tyson in his prime. You're going to put him in a ring and you're going to try to sell a bunch of pay-per-view tickets, okay? Are you going to put him in there with some 150-pound newbie?
With Jake Paul?
Are you going to put him in there with, in his prime, would you put him in there with Jake Paul today?
I would, because I hate Jake Paul, but it wouldn't sell a lot of tickets.
That's what I'm saying. If there's no threat, what was the whole point? That movie, I mean, you could have slowly built to something at the end to really, like you said, to make these characters pay off better. Yeah, John Wayne getting off his horse and just picking up Debbie, I think that just killed every bit of character development we've done throughout the movie.
I also think the fact that it builds slowly, but it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds to nothing, to absolutely nothing, is really, really hard for me to reconcile with, because the whole movie, there's growing tension between Martin and Ethan. And at the end, they're almost to blows. In fact, when they first get Debbie, Martin's ready to kill him to defend Debbie. And then nothing happens.
He pulls they pull their pistols on each other.
They just get over it. He's gonna knife wounded John Wayne in the cave because he threatens to kill Debbie again, and they just get over it.
Yeah.
What the hell? What were you doing, Ford? My man. My guy. My brother in Christ. Why? What? Why? And again, I ask, why?
This is why people like Quentin Tarantino dislike movies from the 50s so much, is because everything is so bland and plain. And that's why the 60s were so counterculture.
Yeah, the good guys win. The bad guys die. The good guys are clean cut and usually white, if not to a T. And the bad guys are evil, and they're either Russian or Native American or this, that, or the other.
Yeah, or an alien.
Or an alien. And the only real climax conflict is that how are the good guys going to win? It's not a question of will they, just how are they going to do it?
And you know what's funny? We kind of see this kind of flip-flop throughout cinema history, because the 40s were known for the noir films where everyone's a bad guy. There are no real good guys, and very rarely did you have a happy ending.
Yeah.
You almost always had not a depressing ending, but just like this guy who got caught up in something that was bigger than himself, and he goes down with it. So this movie's been remade several times under different names, including The Quest in 1976, Grey Eagle in 1977, and The Missing in 2003.
And I bet they all suck.
I bet Grey Eagle looked interesting, but the other ones did not really pique my interest. Kyle, you know what time it is, buddy?
Biggest dope, biggest nope.
Biggest dope, biggest nope. And I got a good compliment on this just earlier today. Someone said they really liked this segment. Okay, I'm ready if you're ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I want you to go first. I feel like I have a slightly better opinion of this movie than you do.
Oof. All right, here we go.
Not much, but a little.
1, 2, 3, go. Okay, biggest dope. I think is the scenes of comedy starring Martin specifically with his shortcomings in his pursuit of Lori. That was her name, Lori. Biggest nope. I'm gonna give it 2 biggest dopes real quick. The scene leading up to the attack on the homestead. Where his family. I loved you can't see a single one of them. All you can do is you see little lights in the howls and stuff like that. Anyways, biggest nope. Complete lack of building our antagonists as genuine threats. You know, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. You got to have an Andre the Giant here, man. They run away the entire movie and they die without a fight during the finale. Okay, your turn.
Okay.
I took up way too much time.
Oh, no. Biggest dope scenes. Big sky, rocks, desert. Biggest nope. Ethan is clearly the antagonist until he's not. And what were we doing? He's so clearly the bad guy in the movie. All right, I'm done. That's it.
I'm so sorry, Kyle.
How
15
rude.
seconds.
How rude.
Oh, I should have just done the one biggest dope.
Skies, rocks, scenes, desert.
That's a nice boulder.
They had a lot of nice boulders. But yes, to expand upon my biggest dope just a little bit, because a certain time hog took all of my seconds. I was fully prepared for this because I'd never seen it before. I had heard it's such a good movie. I was so ready for John Wayne to be the bad guy in this movie, to be the irredeemably corrupted person. And it plays that way for the entire movie. And then we're like, oh, wait, it's John Wayne. He's got to be the good guy. And we just make it so.
Yeah.
Talk about Deus Ex Machina, man. I can't with this movie.
I'm going to hot take, man. Hot take. John Wayne starring as Ethan Edwards may have been the worst thing for this movie. Because if you had someone else, I think they could have killed him.
I think the refusal to use John Wayne as the objectively talented Western actor that he is, and instead use the character John Wayne in the movie, that's the biggest mistake. I think John Wayne, the man, could have killed it. I think he does a really good job for the whole movie.
Wait, hold on. What I meant, I killed the character, not that he didn't kill it. He did a great job acting.
I think if you'd have let John Wayne be John Wayne the actor, it's great. The problem is you wanted John Wayne the movie star, and so he can't be the bad guy, like, is my point. I think, like, I agree with you that a different casting would have probably helped, or they could have just been like, hey John, you're the bad guy, play it, act your ass off, let's see what happens.
There's got to be, some, I don't want to say like a contractual obligation, but it's nobody wants to boo John Wayne at this time in life, so.
And it's also it's the rise of movie stars, because we have like Clark Gable, and we have Liz Taylor around this time, and we have the 30s movie stars, but this is the rise. It's ironic that you mentioned Elvis. This is the rise of the super personality. Like the personality star. Not just people don't just love John Wayne because he's in their movies that they like. They love him because he's John Wayne. I'll tell you, Pilgrim, they love Elvis because he's Elvis, not just because he's a good musician. And so I think that this really shows the social commitment and the fact that people reviewed it well, when it really, to us at least, has no satisfaction in it, means that personality is king in this era of Hollywood.
You know what's interesting is I was reading some of the reviews on Letterboxd, and they were more split than I thought they would be. There's a lot of there's a lot of great reviews saying this was. One person said this was the. It says Homer wrote the Odyssey, and this is the closest the Americans have to an Odyssey. And I'm like, what?
Are you
So what? I don't agree with that, but anyways.
Have you seen Gone with the Wind, my good man?
And then there was others that were like, yeah, I don't get why this movie is so loved. I
don't either.
I don't see it. I tried. I wanted to.
I get why the performances are so loved. Like, I think John Wayne gives a great performance. I think Martin's actor gives a great performance. I get the love of this movie in the sense that, like, if I want to watch John Wayne act, I'm watching The Searchers. Like, if I want him to act like as an actor, I'm watching this or The Shootist or The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Like, those are kind of your three options. But if you want to see a movie where John Wayne just has to be John Wayne because that's how it is, this is also that movie, and it kind of ruins it.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's to the biggest detriment to this film is him starring in it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, man. Rating, I'm gonna say 5 out of 10.
Okay,
I'm gonna go right down the middle, and I'm sure some people are really upset with that. That's
people
okay.
on both sides are gonna be upset with you about that. I think.
With a 5, he's racist, and also like a 5, this is the greatest American movie. I don't care. That's my opinion.
I don't care. It's yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna give it a 6 for personal enjoyment.
Okay,
it's only because for me it's a worse version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Not the plot. The plots are nowhere similar, but in the sense that the ending ruins the movie for me. It's the same feeling.
Okay.
With a better ending, I might even give this movie like a 7, maybe a 7.5, because it the whole time I was ready to love this movie because I'm like, okay, this is so not a 1950s Western movie. Like, we have a complicated protagonist with a dark side.
Yeah.
We have an elusive enemy that we don't just see and paint with a brush that says evil, and then the last 20 minutes do all of those things. And I'm like, gosh. So it's a 6. Historically, that's a hard one. It kind of avoids getting a super low history rating because it's so vague on what's happening.
Some of the details that you mentioned seem to really be accurate, at least.
Take a note, Mel Gibson. So historically, I'll give it a 6 as well. I wouldn't ever point it out as like, hey, you want to know what Comanche raids are like in Texas? Watch this movie. But it's not so irresponsibly wrong that I feel like I have to warn people about it either. So 5 or 6 for history, 6 for personal enjoyment.
Okay, man. What are we doing next week? I think we've got a couple.
Have we even talked about that?
A couple options for next week. Let me look at this list real quick, buddy. Let me look at this list.
For the record, you did this to us because we could have watched Cold Mountain. And
I hate Cold Mountain.
I don't know why. It's such a good movie.
I looked at the cover and I was like, oh, I remember this movie.
It's such a cinematically good movie. Aren't you like a cinephile or something? Isn't that what you do? Yes.
I did not like it when I watched it.
But you also don't like Last of the Mohicans, so I think your opinion is criminally skewed.
It seemed like Last of the Mohicans with more romance.
Okay, but the romance makes sense in Cold Mountain, kind of.
Yeah. All right. So next week it is Good Morning Korea. Nope. Good Morning Japan. Nope.
Good Afternoon Thailand.
Yep. Hello China. No.
Wait. I can figure it out. It's Good Morning Vietnam.
Which I've not seen, but I do know that line.
Yeah,
Michael Scott says it in one of the Office episodes. Fun fact.
Oh man.
So, anyways, that was an interesting movie.
Yeah, that's a good one for it. A lot of good in that movie. A lot of not good in that movie.
A lot of not good. A lot of good. We're gonna keep moving forward, man. We are wrapping up this season. I think when I posted our next one, which is coming out on Tuesday. That was number 13, so 14, 15. We only got 5 more to record.
Wow.
For season 2.
Dang.
So, guys, our listenings have been going up, and I really appreciate it. We're hopping right now.
We're excited.
For how we've been doing, we're hopping right now. We've had like a good, steady audience listening. So
of 7.5 people.
So we're way over 7.5 right now. We're doing good.
Oh,
okay. We'll still make jokes about, even if we have like thousands of listeners, we'll still be like, thank you to the 15 people involved in our community. No, it's fine. I did have a little fun fact for you here, Kyle.
Oh.
We are now 95% North American. We have listeners from the UK and a couple from different places in Asia. We've got listeners in Canada as well, and I think France.
Okay.
Maybe?
I know where I know who the British people should be. I know who the German is. I have an idea on the French person. The Canadian and the Asian people, I don't have any idea. So
Bro,
woo!
we're out there, man. We're international
without being intentional. I
Yes,
love
sir.
that.
Oh, there we go. That's a good line.
Unintentionally international.
There we go. All right, man. Well, I'm excited for us to keep moving forward. Again, thank you all for listening. If you made it to the end of the podcast, I appreciate you. I hope you're enjoying that music cue kicking in right about now. We can't hear it, but you can.
Is it going? Did you turn it on?
It's not. I do it in editing.
Can you hear me now?
We can still hear you, Kyle. You're still here.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed this, and keep on searching.
Goodbye.